at Volunteer Toronto, and it is my pleasure this morning to introduce Lee from Management Advisory Services, who will be facilitating this workshop today on recruiting skilled volunteers. So everyone please give a warm welcome to Lee. And please take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you. Accept this from us.
Oh, thank you very much. Hello, welcome. I am a skilled volunteer. I have been volunteering full-time for 4 years, and the objective of this presentation is to help you find more people like me. Before I get into too much, let me explain to you sort of the world of skilled volunteering. You can get a skilled volunteer at any age group, and they will be completely competent, and everything will be fine. The difference is their motivation and their time availability. So there are two sweet spots. There's recent graduates, and they are motivated to build their careers and build their resumes. And then there's a bit of a dip when families happen, and then you start getting people like me. We are at the end of our careers, and we want to give back using the skills we learned in our careers. So I'm with MAS, that's Management Advisory Services. We are a pro bono consulting firm. We are a charity, and we are volunteer run. We are very efficient. We only have half a person who is our office manager that keeps us all in line. We have all the different practice areas. Most of our work is in strategy and governance, like 50% of the work is. We also have a lot in HR. I'm in the marketing practice area. We complete about 200 projects per year. Each project is about 25 hours per project, and we work individually. So I'm one of 50 volunteer consultants that we have available to help you out. And MAS has been going for 20 years, although I've only been there for 3 years. My story. My story is I went to business school because I'm a business person, and I loved it so much I went back and did it another time. And then I worked in marketing in the banks, and I love marketing. I absolutely love my job, but then I got pregnant. Then I went on mat leave, and like 18 years later, what happened? So I am fortunate to be in a position where money is no longer a motivator. So yes, I volunteer full-time for free. And there's a bunch of people just like me. I love volunteering through MAS because it has the benefits of management consulting. So I get really interesting work. I get a variety of clients. I get to work from home, pick my time, pick my clients. And it does not have the one big disadvantage that management consulting has, which is that whole management consulting song and dance. I do not do the song and dance. So it's because money does not change hands in the relationship. And because of that, I keep control. And so we set the tone. It's just great. I love it. And I will continue to volunteer through MAS because it's just so great. There's another group. They're called Endeavor, and they're more recent graduates. They only do strategy, and they only do about 12 projects a year because they all have full-time jobs. They work as a team, which is why each individual project takes so much time. They've been going for 8 years. Then there's others in the universities and the community colleges. They typically have a pro bono consulting firm to get their students some experience. The consulting firms, those are the for-profit consulting firms that do pro bono on the side. Pop-ups these are professionals who are between jobs, and they're looking to fill a gap in their resume. And then social venture partners, they're really different from us. If you think of the for-profit world and angel investors that invest both their time and their money, social venture partners, they select very few but very lucky nonprofits that they help. So this is the map of Toronto. Calgary has a similar map. There's a few cities in the US and in Switzerland too, from what we gather. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is these two white papers, which I hope you've picked up. If you want the electronic versions, you just go to the MAS website there's publications of all of our white papers. They're available for free as PDF downloads, so you can send them to whoever else you want. Part 1 is written for people like you. Part 2 is not written for people like you. This is written for the skilled volunteers. You just give it to them as a PDF and hand it over. The reason why we made these is that, like when a professional starts a new job, they are surrounded by colleagues and a boss that orients them. But when a professional volunteers, they still are expected to be instant experts, And we still have to have the same learning curve, but there is no support network. So this is our attempt at getting a support network going. It's got the statistics and the soft stuff to help them start giving back faster. All right. So the roles. There's typically 3 roles that you would want a skilled volunteer. Now, traditionally everyone thinks board members. And yes, and there's lots of literature out there on how to recruit and manage board members. There's the CPA, there's Board Source, there's UltraVest, there's lots of people. I am not reinventing that wheel. What I'm going to focus on is there is another 2 roles, those subcommittee members and one-time projects. There is nothing out there to orient the volunteers who are going to work on those projects. Now, remember that last slide where I showed all the different pro bono consulting firms? All of us are structured to help you on one-time projects. None of us are structured to help you be a subcommittee member. So if that's the kind of skilled volunteer you need, you are going to have to do everything I'm saying today. But nonetheless, everything I say today also applies to one-time project volunteers, and it also applies to your board members as well. So a skilled volunteer is a professional who has specific expertise, HR, governance, IT. And unlike regular volunteers that help with the operations, we help with management. Why? Well, we have the specific expertise that you need. We are short-term. Unlike an employee, you don't need to nurture us over time. We do the job, and then we disappear. We are unbiased. Unlike employees who may not feel comfortable telling you some uncomfortable facts, we say what it is. Unlike founders who may like the way things have done, we're not tied to the way things have been done. And unlike board members, we don't have pet projects. We're also outsiders. So we see you as an outsider, like not only you, but your old cause. We see your cause as an outsider and what's missing in the cause and how you fit in. We also, because we're not caught up in the day-to-day crises that you all have to manage, it's just easier for us to see the big picture. So throughout this, there's going to be this theme. I started to say, well, we're sort of volunteers, but we're sort of consultants. Treat us like we are this weird hybrid. Like, we're not consultants, but treat us like that. We are volunteers, but don't treat us like a volunteer. So we're just this weird hybrid. And so many times, my clients just don't know how to treat me. They're just like, ooh, how do you... And so hopefully this presentation will help a little bit. First thing you got to do is find us. There's a job description here in part 1. You can look at it. When you're developing the job description, focus on identifying the skills that you need and what's in it for them to help you out. Don't worry too much about defining the problem, because chances are the problem definition is going to change anyways. So spend more time on the kind of person you want to get. Then you circulate it to all these places, volunteer postings, all the website, board of directors, large head offices, and they either donate their staff time or staff donate on their own time. All the consulting firms, the universities, just spread the net, spread it out, get the word out there repeatedly. And then you wait. There are a lot of skilled volunteers, but it's just a really small window of opportunity because of the motivation and the time commitment required. It's at Mass, we are constantly short-staffed. So we're constantly recruiting. And so I make a joke of it, but this could take months, this sitting back, waiting for people to phone you. As well, you got to understand that even though skilled volunteers might show up, they might not be a good fit. So even if you get 5 calls, you might find 1 that'll be a good fit for you. So I keep on saying you pay us in ways other than money. Well, okay, how do you do that? Like, what's in it for me? And when I'm recruiting for volunteers at Mass, this is the make or break page. I can tell from their resume whether they can competently do the work for our clients. It's all about the motivation. And I sort of don't really pursue 80% of the people that apply to Mass. So you might want to expect a little bit of extra work for you. So what's in it for them? Well, recent graduates, they want to build their resume using concrete examples. Back when I was starting out, I was just this little marketing manager in this big organization, and it is so hard to isolate the impact that one person has and put on your to me. So volunteering is so great. Like if they can say, whoa, we increased revenue by 10%, that is gold to someone at the beginning part of their career. Apply their education to a new industry. This is really important in marketing, to have lateral experience in different industries. It is so important to build your career. And in Canada, there just aren't that many industries that you can get that experience. And so volunteering is a fabulous way to get that lateral experience without impacting your day job. And then learn how to be a consultant. I wish when I was at that stage that I had learned how to be a consultant, because it's a great skill set to have. Now, this is why I volunteer. I volunteer, but I fear stuffing envelopes, and in marketing, it's a big one. I want to fill my time with meaningful part-time work, and I see the difference I make, especially in marketing, because I see a client's before website and then their after website, and it's just, yeah, I can see why these people need my help. And you know, at the end, people say, oh, how can we thank you and all that. You know what I tell them? Do what I tell you to do. And it's kind of like a doctor. You know, doctors, they have, patients that smoke too much and drink too much, and they never take medical advice. And do you realize how discouraging that is for doctors? But when you get a patient who actually does what you do, tell you to do, and they get better, I mean, that's why doctors go to medical school. You know, at some point, it's no longer about the money. It's about helping people and having impact. So I see the difference I make. If when you're recruiting, you meet two people, just keep a heads up on this one. Unemployed professionals who want to fill in the gap in their resume. Okay, what I'm about to say has nothing to do with their competency. They can be completely competent. What it's all about is that their motivation, and they're motivated to fill a gap in their resume. So the minute they find a job, their motivation vanishes, which means they vanish, even in the middle of a program. So both Mass and Endeavour do not interview people who are between jobs, because we've learned the hard way. It leaves the client hanging. For-profit consultants who want to build their portfolio. Okay, so for the large nonprofits in the room, this is not a big issue. I mean, they'll want to put your logo on their website, so if you're okay with that, go for it. This is more a comment for the small nonprofits in the room. Let me tell you something I've learned about the consulting business. Consultants have a client management process that they develop for their typical clients, which are typically for-profit large institutions with acres of people and lots of politics and all that. And so they build this process to fit that need. Now, if you're a small, nimble nonprofit and they try and map their process onto you, what's going to happen is it's going to be overkill, and you're going to end up doing a lot of things you don't need to do. At Mass, I have learned I have to have two completely separate client management processes. I have one for small nonprofits, I have one for large nonprofits. They are different like night and day. So just be careful if you're a small nonprofit on that. What to look for? Okay, well, of course, yeah, sure, listening skills, focuses on your needs, not on their own accomplishments. Uses language that you can understand and not makes themselves look important. Spirit of collaboration. When you read the literature on what makes a good consultant, that seems to be the key criteria. It's the willingness to sort of roll up your sleeves and help you think things through and help you set priorities. It's acting like a peer, and that seems to be important. Fresh perspective and available time. How to manage. Okay, chances are, if you get a skilled volunteer, they're going to be like I was 4 years ago. So I worked in a marketing department of a large organization. I knew marketing. I did not know consulting. I knew project management, but I didn't know how to handle a client. So as volunteer managers, you might have to help these people through, because I certainly 4 years ago, I needed a lot of help. And what I'm going to show you is what we do at Mass, which really works. It's really simple, but it keeps us on track, and it gives us the sense of accomplishment that we need at the end of a project. So, first of all, clarify your expectations. There's a suggested proposal form here on page 6. You can look at it later. But really say, this is what we need you to do. Be specific. The key, though, is the close form. Remember I said pay us in ways other than money? That's how you pay us, that project close form. Because that identifies what are the things that we did to help, we as volunteers helped you. It's your approval that I could put your name on my resume, and it's your approval that you would be a reference for me, and that when you are a reference, you can say the right things to my soon-to-be employer. That is so key. Don't let the relationship wither. That is how you thank people. You don't need money. Okay, tips to prepare you. Orient your volunteer. You just give this to them and send them off. Approach from a position of strength. I get clients who say, oh, can you help us? Yeah. You see, the reason is that back in the day when I was a marketing manager, 90% of my job was just implementation stuff. And it's that little sliver of my job that was so exciting that I loved, and it kept me going through the other 90%. Well, you are offering a professional to work on the 10%, and I don't have to work on the 90%? Yes! When I go to social events and I meet other marketers in other industries, and I tell them what I do, their jaws drop. You get to do the fun stuff. So yes, you are offering a professional just so much fun. It's great. Don't expect professionals to be emotionally tied to your cause. Professionals tend to like their profession and want to develop their skills. And it really doesn't matter what the cause is, whether it's the airline industry or banking or homelessness, it's all kind of the same thing. What I find interesting is actually the demand that I have to become an instant expert and that intellectual stimulation to get up to speed really quickly. And also I like to see the patterns between the causes. And sometimes there are patterns and sometimes there aren't. It's really interesting. But the individual causes, I know from a marketing point of view, the value I bring my clients is that when I start, I know nothing. And that's actually really valuable because I see you as an outsider. Don't expect professionals will want to be board members. Okay, so young professionals will not want to be board. They will want to build the skills that are in their career. So they're going to want to focus on being a subcommittee member. But if you meet a professional at the end of their career and they want to start developing their skills outside, sure, you can offer to them, but don't expect it. I think in mass, only about 50% of us are actually board members, and the other 50%, never be on the board. Been there, done that, do not want to do that. Expect professionals to work fast. You can tell from the speed of my voice. I grew up in the business world where there is a hierarchy and decisions are made quickly, and so I'm used to it. So I have to consciously slow down with my clients or else I just overwhelm them. So if you have a skilled volunteer, they're probably going to be like me 4 years ago. Sensitize your employees for 4. Okay, this even after 4 years, this just and it's not just the language. It's more than just the double bottom line too. It's the fundamental content of what I say, and that my default language is the business language, and so I try to be careful about what I say. I mean, for example, I've learned I never say who are your competitive. That it's always the alternate providers and that. Because I get this really unexpected emotion in this industry, which is really surprising for a marketer because we're used to dealing with the different industries and there's not this emotion. So I don't really understand why. But all I know is that I have to be really sensitive about this. Now, luckily for me, in mass, most of my dealings are with EDs, and EDs get it. Like they just understand where I'm coming from, and so I can just relax and just use my normal language. But if there is someone else in the room with the ED, I'm walking on eggshells, and I am so on red alert that I'm going to say the wrong word. So just relax if your skilled volunteer uses business language. Tips for HR projects. Okay, help adjust expectations. Okay, this is also relevant for marketing. You can tell I'm in marketing. I keep on using marketing examples. Probably your skilled volunteer will be from a large organization that has everything all set out, and it's going to be quite disconcerting for them to suddenly be in a small one where there isn't everything already figured out. So they have to be really creative in compensating for that. Establish upfront the depth of work needed. Okay, so your skilled volunteer could be at the end of their career and say, I don't really want to do strategy, I don't want to write job descriptions or whatever. Well, if that's what you need, time to find a skilled volunteer. Tips for strategy projects. There are as many ways of doing strategic planning as there are strategic planners. There's no one in here. Okay, my boss isn't here. Okay, in mass we have these practice areas and they have meetings amongst themselves. And so I actually sat through one of the strategic planning meetings that, oh yes, they have definite opinions of how to do strategic planning. So if you are recruiting a skilled volunteer, just go with the flow on that one because there's a lot of very strong opinions on that one. Provide background information. This happens in strategy and with marketing because we have to be instant experts in your cause. We need just an avalanche of information. No, the other practice areas don't need it so much. Board must be engaged early in the process, and it is such a time commitment for the board. You have to make sure they are willing to give the time that is needed for a strategy project. Marketing project. Marketing done badly is really easy to do, but marketing done well is so awesome, and it's so paradoxical because marketing is just common sense. But common sense can be uncommon. Marketers are generalists or specialists. Okay, the marketing industry has done a disservice to ourselves because there's a whole bunch of people and we all call ourselves marketers, and we're all different. And so from an outsider looking in, it must be so confusing. Because most of the people that you will meet are the specialists. So that would be the writers and the graphic artists and madmen. They are specialists. They are advertisers, which is a subspecialty of marketing. But they're specialists. And I am a generalist. People call me product marketers and that. We are employees within the marketing departments of large organizations. And no one ever does television programs on us, ever. But if you can use the analogy of we're like the family doctor, and we pull in the specialists when we need them. Every large nonprofit should have a generalist marketer on staff, and every small one should try and recruit a generalist volunteer. Distinction between marketing and practice. Okay. In the for-profit world, the sales department and the marketing department are separate and equal. They have different job descriptions, different motivations, different time frames, everything is different. And you would no more expect the same person to do the same job as an accountant would do. Large nonprofits pretty well have this figured out between fundraising and the marketing department. But small nonprofits seem to expect one person to do the same thing, and they are completely different skill sets, which leads to my fourth point, which is carefully select the other employees who will work. Don't assume that the fundraisers are going to want to work with the marketers. When in fact they will be very threatened, and with good cause, because a lot of what I do ends up, I create transparency in the fundraising department, and that can be very scary, and I could end up changing their job descriptions and that. So there is very good reason why they should feel threatened by someone like me. Remember that earlier slide when I said we're sort of we're this weird hybrid between a volunteer and a consultant? Well, most fundraisers won't yell at volunteers, but they will yell at consultants. And I've been yelled at and screamed at, and it's because it is so threatening. So as volunteer managers, separate the fundraisers from the marketers. Okay, now we get into the part two. Now this is not written for you, this is written for the skilled volunteers. And this is the juicy stuff. This is how we talk about you behind your back. And so in the idea of the better you understand us, the better you can manage us, I'll take a few things out of here. I'm not going to take a lot. Generally I'm only going to talk about 50% of the stuff that's in here. The other 50% is the stuff that I did not put in here because it's just too juicy. I didn't feel comfortable publishing it, but I'm quite willing to say it in person. Okay, so diagnose and triage. What a nonprofit asks for is not necessarily what they need. When we get together socially, all the different practice areas, this is the one thing we talk about. And I know in the marketing area, I calculated that only 1/3 of my clients accurately self-diagnosed, which means 2/3 did not accurately self-diagnose, which means I uncovered way more than they originally thought. And it happens in all practice areas. And we don't really expect you to be that because you kind of need the expertise in order to identify and separate the difference between a problem and a symptom of a deeper problem. But this happens in all practice areas. So remember when I was talking about earlier about the job descriptions and I said focus on the skill set that you need and the motivations and don't really worry about the problem definition? Well, that's because 2/3 of the time the problem's going to change throughout the course of the project. Let me give you an example on the marketing side of the difference between a problem and a symptom. So I had a client that asked me, our board does not feel comfortable being ambassadors. So we set a whole day off-site for the whole board, and will you come and facilitate us and give us spokesperson training? Turns out The reason why the board didn't feel comfortable as ambassadors is because the messages weren't clear, and they weren't clear on the website. And well, the website is the foundation of the brand, and if that's the symptom, is the board wasn't clear, but by the way, the volunteers probably weren't clear, and the staff wasn't clear either. So this actual problem was, fix the website. You don't need to have a board offsite. We need more donors, so we've decided we're going to have a golf tournament, so can you help us manage the event? Slow down here now. Well, first of all, you have to figure out, do you actually need more donors, which is an acquisition activity, or do you just need to keep the donors you already have, which is a retention activity? And the acquisition and retention activities from a marketing point of view are completely different. So first you got to figure out what your problem is before you jump to a solution of which activity to select. Those are two examples, but it happens in every practice area. When to walk away. I'm going to put up some ideas here. It doesn't really happen at Mass too often because, for two reasons. Mass has two filters. First of all, we filter clients. 25% of the clients that apply to us end up being filtered away for various reasons. So by the time a client actually makes it to a volunteer consultant, they're pretty well vetted, and even still, then we have to redo the problem definition. The other filter we have is that we filter the consultants themselves. I only accept about 20% of the applicants. Contrast that with Endeavour. They told me that they filter out 50% of their clients and almost 90% of their volunteers. So what does this mean? Well, it means that if you're going to be recruiting directly, you have to be your own filter. So hesitation about the project. That's that 25% filter that, you know, if you have a staff person that says, we need a skilled volunteer for 75% of the time, it's right, and 25%, it'll just vanish. Hesitation about the volunteer. Yeah, that's that 80% of it's just not, the volunteer won't work out. Not right for the volunteer. That doesn't happen too much at Mass because we only recruit generalists, but if you have recruited a specialist, and that's, like, for example, in the marketing side, there's the art side of marketing and the science side of marketing. The art side of marketing is the Mad Men stuff. It's the brochures and the website. The science side of marketing is like, I'm a cost accountant. It's number crunching, sitting at a computer, very, very number oriented. And if you end up recruiting one and then you do the diagnosis and you ended up needing a specialist on the other side, you have to start all over again. But it's good to identify it right up front. Overwhelming. This happens all the time with my clients because, you know, they think the problem's this big, and then I come in and, you know, the problem's actually this big. So you have to break it out and help them get through the different stages. Chemistry, it doesn't really happen too often, but it can happen. No staff assigned. I insist that for my clients, the ED frees up at least 20 hours of their time, and if they don't, the project goes on hold until their calendar frees up. So it's a huge time commitment. Expect that no one in a small nonprofit will understand the fundamental principles of your profession. It has taken me 4 years to figure out how to describe what I do to people who don't know what I do. Because remember, I always worked in a large marketing department. Everyone knows what marketers do in a big corporation. And it's like asking a fish to describe the water, right? And then suddenly I'm a fish out of water. And I didn't have the language to explain what I do. And now it's taken me 4 years, and just as an example, the way I describe it now is I use an example to the real estate market. If you're buying your house right now, you have the opportunity to hire a staging company. And what stagers do is they make your house look nice so buyers will want to buy your house. That's what I do. I make a nonprofit look good so donors will want to donate to you. And the way stagers do it, in case you didn't know, they just take your clutter and put it in storage. That's what I do too. I just get rid of clutter and clean it right up. So that took me 4 years to realize that analogy. So if you get a skilled volunteer fresh off a corporation, they're not going to have the language. Expect resistance. So I told you how fundraisers all yell at me. For our strategy volunteers, they get huge resistance from the EDs who feel that asking for help is a sign of their own weakness. And so that's going to be really hard to manage. Governance volunteers, they get resistance from founders and board members who don't like change and want to keep it the way they were. As a volunteer manager, good luck on trying to manage that resistance. Many nonprofits do not know how to manage a volunteer. Okay, I've been volunteering for 4 years. I've never met a volunteer manager until today. I'm so glad to meet you because I've heard you exist. Because people talk about you. I've never met you, and I guess it's because I always just deal with VED. I don't know why, but hey, it'd be great if they're skillful. Just go ahead and shake your hand, and just introduce yourself. It'd be really great. But certainly they don't know how to manage us. Typical projects. Okay, for HR, it's a lot of policies and procedures and practices and that for small nonprofits who don't have that. And then workshops on that. And really, executive coaching, it's amazing. Like we have volunteers available that they were executive coaches as their career and they made a lot of money on it. And now they've retired and they do it for free. I think it's so amazing. Typical projects for governance. Oh yeah. There's different governance models, and you need to have a different model for different stages of the life cycle of your nonprofit, and you have to figure out which is right for you, and then the board orientation workshops. That's for new board members, but it's also for boards that are dysfunctional. I am so grateful we have people like this that do this. I could never do that, but they make my job so much easier. Finally, tips for typical marketing project. Okay, so for small nonprofits, typically what I do is I rebrand them. So I write and create a new website for them, and then I give them tutorials on how to update it themselves. And then I work on all their other promotional, like brochures, donor presentation packages, donor letters. And again, I work on that all on PowerPoint so they could update it themselves. As a contrast, for-profit consultants would charge $10,000 to $20,000 and use technology that is not available so that the clients keep on having to come back and pay for updates. A typical project for me is about 35 hours and over the course of about 2 months. Okay, large nonprofits, totally different. These projects can last 100 or 200 hours. And they are typically, large nonprofits need to worry about the art of marketing, the science of marketing, and the people of marketing. So the people of marketing give suggestions on how to structure a marketing department. The science of marketing is figuring out the efficiency of the different revenue streams and the churn of the donor portfolio and how you should spend your time and your money. And then the art side of marketing is the stuff you see, the Mad Men stuff. Good marketing needs the foundation of good strategy and good governance. Problems with marketing? Okay, 2/3 of my clients, everything just goes along just beautifully. Everything's wonderful. And then about 1/3 of my clients, bombs go off in the middle. What's happening here? Problems with marketing projects are never about marketing. They're about HR or governance all the time. And so if you have a project and a volunteer that's working on a marketing project and it goes sideways, I'm willing to bet $100. It's not because of marketing. It's because of governance and HR issues. I'm done. Right. So, time for questions. Okay.
Do you have a preference of working for small nonprofits and larger ones?
No. It's the people. Yeah. The ones I stick around longer with. I mean, intellectually, there are some differences in that, and it's a good learning thing. Oh, the small ones, sometimes I feel like I'm a factory churning out these websites, but it's the people. Yes?
When you're vetting organizations for projects, what are some of the things that you look for?
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, location. Some of the practice areas can only operate in Toronto, but I can operate Canada-wide, so location's a big one. Also, just whether, we have really tiny nonprofits, and just whether they have the wherewithal to even engage and talk to someone. Tiny. And then, just some of them it's that 20% that just, we need help, and then they vanish. Well, maybe we didn't actually need help after all. Yes?
Have you been in a situation where you work in collaboration with other skilled volunteers? Or how might a volunteer manager manage that relationship?
Yeah, okay, at Mass, because we deal with small nonprofits, we insist that that projects be sequential, just because they don't have the wherewithal to handle multiple projects simultaneously. So that's how we handle it. It has to be sequential, and we hand it off to the next one. Now, I don't know how Endeavor does it, because they do work as a group project. I don't know how they do it. I know how they do it. They only do strategy projects. That's how they do it. So they would do one strategy project. If they had a marketing project, no one's working on it. That's how they do it. Yes?
Following up to that question, so if, for instance, you were a skilled volunteer at an organization, would you be a singular person working on one project, or as part of a team? Is that also something that occurs, like on not an official committee, but not someone other than you and an ED working to?
It depends on the practice area.
Right.
So governance, it's the volunteer consultant and the board.
Right.
Me, it's me and ED. HR, it's usually just ED.
Right. So
Strategy.
if you were working marketing, would staff marketers get involved, or would it just kind of be?
Yeah, usually one person.
Okay.
Yes, and would you also, provide sort of capacity building opportunities for other volunteers at the organization based on your skill set, whether it's website development, communications, or marketing along those lines? Would that be something that you would also?
I don't understand the question. Like other, like
So
you
there
would
are
teach-
other, yeah.
Oh
so-
yeah, tutorials.
So like tutorials,
Yes,
or
yes,
like
yes.
you as a skilled volunteer teaching other volunteers who are coming to the organization as skilled volunteers.
Yes.
Yes.
When I look at the work I do and I break down to 35 hours, that's just me. I don't know about the others. 80% of what I do is I write. It's me and the board. But 20% is I teach. I teach the people how to do websites and how to do WordPress and PowerPoint, and I teach them fundraising. I do a lot of teaching. Because remember, unlike for-profit consultants who want repeat business, I don't want repeat business. Like it's okay to go to another consultant, but I don't want my clients coming back every year because I got to go with my other clients. So I don't want repeat business.
So I actually did have a question about what does retention look like in the context of a skilled volunteer within an organization? Because I'm getting the impression sort of like a skilled volunteer is, oh, this looks like an interesting thing, I'll do it for this year, but then maybe not next year. And I understand that that's, it's flexibility that's appealing.
Right.
But from a nonprofit perspective, you have somebody who's able to, who's really able to help out in these ways, then how do we really build that connection or that
Okay, so you're asking about retention of the staff?
of the skilled volunteer?
Yeah, the skilled volunteers. Yeah, that's a real hard because
It's
a lot of them they disappear. Well, I disappear for the summer. A lot of it disappeared in Florida. Yeah. So, but we have actually long tenure people. Like if you get someone, I'm going to be there for years because I love it. So if we have a tenure problem, it's because it just wasn't the right fit after all. But nonetheless, I do insist that any new recruits have to stay with us for at least 3 years because you do the math. Like anytime I started a new job, it took like 2 months to figure things out in that. Well, 2 months full-time is like a year and a half part-time. So really, a volunteer doesn't actually start giving back until they've been with Mass for a year and a half. So that's why we have that 3-year limit as a minimum.